million or 82 million pounds, I should say. This included GWR, liner, transpin, express, ScotRail, and Hull trains. All of these were being built in that particular plant. However, the problem with it is you had these trains develop cracking issue. Hello everybody, welcome back to Train Sim World, where we are on the very last 1L92 Swansea to London Paddington HST mission. This one's again 8550 for the AP score. This one's only supposed to take 26 minutes. I don't quite understand the slight difference between this version of it and this version of it, but one somehow has 4 extra minutes. Maybe it's because of that emergency stop I had. Who knows what it is, but let's get right into this. Alright folks, so for our last HST, it is 9 o'clock at night and the shadows are unfortunately still there at Reading Station, but what can we do with this? There's not much we can do with this. We've got another creeper! Sir, I'm sorry. Dude, your train. If you want to get on the very last HST, it is over there. I will open the door just for you to climb on board. Until then, you've got to wait your turn for the next network or turbo. I guess that's what's next. Let's close that door. Let's sit down in the driver's seat. Go ahead and turn on our AWS. Let's go ahead and turn on our DSD. Both of those will go from isolated to non-isolated. Since I'm over here, might as well turn on the gauge dimmer. Since I'm way over here, might as well turn on train supply brightness to bright. Don't need window demeister. We'll turn on the spare because it does absolutely nothing useless. It is nighttime as I just said, so we're going to turn on night headlamp mode. Since we're over here, the singler says proceed as singled indicates that we could totally get moving. There's one stop, of course, London Paddington, the only place we're stopping. Let's drop those brakes. Let us go ahead and actually turn on the master key before we do anything else. Put this into, not reverse, but put this into forward, and of course press Q to get rid of that annoying sound. And as I max out my amperes and as the brake pipe pressure rises to 5.1, we will finally head out for the very last HST mission, folks. Yes, that is true. The very last HST mission. After this, there will be no more HSTs, at least until the Great Western Remastered releases, or until I get one of the DLCs that involve Great Western and I come back into this to do a little bit more for the missions. With that said, there's a good chance I'll be early if I don't get emergency stop. One of the things I've got to appreciate right now about the Great Western Express is the fact that these trains go relatively quickly when you're doing 30-minute missions. The fact is, most of the passenger and even the freight services are all within at least an hour, so it's a very quick, easy to do mission. I'm going to go ahead and overspeed here because I'm just going to let it go because I know I'm going to hit that 60-mile-an-hour zone. There's no point to slow down over that. And already, as you can see, we're hitting the 125, so I'm not going to even worry about the 60-mile-an-hour zone either. Oh gosh. I will worry about that AWS though. I will worry about that AWS. I hate when that happens. Alright folks, so because this happened to be the last HST mission, I think it is worth explaining and talking about the castle set. What are castle sets, folks? This is a castle set. Yes, that is right. The HST here is considered a castle set. Now, does this particular one have markings on them? Some of them sometimes does have marking, not so much the number marking, but in terms of the name marking, load 2.2 tons evenly distributed, that's not what I'm referring to. So a lot of HSTs have a tendency of having like actual labels, so like Queen Victoria Chariot, something like that. I made that one up completely. So the idea behind the castle set, they were originally introduced in 2018. This one, by the way, is not a castle set. Now, notice I said there's no names on there. So the castle sets were introduced in 2018 because there was a shortage of trains caused by delayed delivery of the new train fleets and the related associated cars that go with these train fleets. In total, there were 16 4-coach sets that were converted by Wabtec Rail. This happened over in Doncaster. The coaches were modified and fitted with sliding doors to meet access requirements. GWR used these particular trains on regional services running between Cardiff Central, Penzance, and other destinations in between. However, their original intention was to have 10 sets from December, doing with 2 in maintenance and then 8 being passenger service lines. There's our network or turbo coming into Reading Station there. There were going to be 7 sets going in traffic from May of 2023. There were going to be 3 sets in traffic from September of 2023. And the idea here is by December of 2023, all 10 sets would have been revoked and eliminated from the rail line. The intention to withdraw the fleet was made to reduce costs and to overall reduce carbon emissions across the route. So yes, the HSTs do waste a lot of carbon. If you think about it, if I just kind of zoom over here to my HST, you can see all this wonderful carbon coming off the top of the logo, because why? This is a diesel unit. It's not electric. It's powered by fuel. And so the waste of this carbon is the biggest reason why they are saying this train is getting eliminated off the rail line. Granted, it's not going to be exactly this particular train, but the idea behind it is once they eliminate the Castle Set, the IETs, also known as the Intercity Express trains, these are the Class 800, the Class 802, some people call it the Class 8XX, and they use these things as the means to essentially stopgap the rail, so it's not just going to be like missing lines or anything like that. More on that in a few minutes, folks. Despite removing these trains by 2023, the problem is they're still going to have some HST Castle Set, and a small number of these sets specifically are owned by First Group and or other assets that are related to First Group. They're not owned by Angel Trains, so these sets are going to be the ones that are still going to be driving around in 2024. They're still going to be remaining in service at least until December. By December 2024, technically the last of the Castle Set should be eliminated from the rail line. You just be seeing other stuff on the rails. Whether that's true, you know how it goes every single time with the Great Western Express. Something's gonna delay, something's gonna cancel, something just going to get in the way, folks. What are they essentially potentially going to replace the HSTs with? Now, I've heard the HSTs are about 60 years old. The train that I'm currently driving in, this wonderful one here, which I did not turn on the engine room light because I like doing that sort of thing because it does absolutely nothing because they can't go in the engine room light. That's much better. I like the way this looks. It's so beautiful. It's worthy of a photo. With that said, what is the HST going to be replaced with? Something I was looking at is what's the future of HST? And again, HSTs are about 60 years old. How are they going to deal with this? They're potentially going to replace the network of turbos that we're seeing there with something else potentially, and the network of turbos are a little bit on the younger side. They've managed to refresh the network of turbos, keep that in mind, but the HSTs on the other hand, that's a completely different story, folks. The HST could be replaced by the Class 175 DMUs. I say this because Great Western Express as of 2024 was expected to take on a fleet of 175 DMUs. This was withdrawn by Transport for Wales last year. It's understood that their move has been received by the Department for Transport, not the Department of Transportation like we say in the United States, but the Department for Transport, whatever that means. The idea, they have to sign a lease with Angel Trains. Angel Trains is the one who actually owns the Class 175, and unless the First Group buys them themselves and puts them into service, they're essentially going to be working off a lease system. So keep in mind, there's 3 groups that own these trains, the actual ownership of the actual train, not necessarily the line. Very wonky little monopoly system they've got there. The advantage of buying these 175 is the removal of the 2+4 Castle HSTs in Devon and Cornwall, which happen to be the very last of the castles that are still running. This will still provide the capacity necessary for enhancements, such as bringing in the Mid-Cornwall Metro and the Metro West schemes, and gives additional resilience to the Great Western overall DMU fleet, which generally is stretched. So this is why you end up with the wonderful Christmas closures that happen in December. This is why you just have all sorts of issues left and right because of the fact that sometimes there's just not enough engine to go around. So like in the US, you have probably extra engines on standby, extra engines in storage, whatever it is. You could always press something back into fleet, whereas in this case, everything is leased, so everything cost-based, so you're trying to cut down the cost as best as possible. What they're trying to do here is they're trying to look at all of the available options they have to them to try to expand the fleet, first off. Second, trying to get better reliability and boosting overall capacity across the network. Now, this could be capacity related to the number of passenger cars available to the people that are going to be riding it, but it also could be bringing in ridership, so keep those two thought processes in mind for a second. Going with expanding the fleet first, you get that as a first stage of the plan to rejuvenate regional and suburban services. However, bringing on additional trains allow for the removal of the oldest, less reliable, just most ridiculous, probably like the ancient HSTs. Maybe this is one of them because this happened to be one of the first DLCs for Train Sim World. Let's honk our horn. No, we don't have to. There's a wonderful gate there. Don't need to worry about honking our horn. The whole move that they're going to be doing with the Castle class here, that is completely separate from something called Project Churchward. I mentioned this, I think, in the last episode with the Network of Turbos. If you didn't see it, please watch the last episode. There's a little detailed in there. Project Churchward is all about developing plans for long-term replacement for the DMU fleet. I was talking previously about how we can address the potential for the Network of Turbos, and what about removing them from service and what potentially could replace them. In the case of the HSTs, this gets very challenging. So you have the advantages of removing the HSTs again, which are 60-something years old, but you have the disadvantage of bringing in the Class 175, which is not that much younger if you think about it. But then you also have the advantage of bringing the IETs, or the Intercity Express train. Now, the IETs, there's another issue in itself. I'll come back to that in a few minutes, folks. The issue with the 175s, and why I bring this up as reliability potential challenges for the GWR, is you have the issues with two of them having been affected by thermal incidences and were basically stood down or removed from service and put into maintenance, and they're being used currently now to recover potential spares and replace them out. Two that were having the most difficulty here were number 5751 and number 79708. Oh my god, that person with the suitcase probably just got run through. I'm sorry, person with the suitcase. I hope I honked in time. Now, the other problem with the 175 is you have the issue with them being built again in 1999, around 2000, 1999. They were technically retired by Transport for Wales last year. This would have been 2023. And they were retired because of the introduction of 197 and 231 into the Wales fleet. Here's the problem I have with this. So now the GWR is going to be buying older engines to replace older engines. I don't see that working out for them very well. Temporarily it'll be fine, but long term it's not going to work. And again, the advantage of this is to remove the Castle class HSTs, which right now is being primarily in Devon and Cornwall. That's the location where they're riding them. What GWR will do is they will take some of their class 150s and they'll take those off the rails and move them back to their original owner, which also happens to be Angel Trains, and then Angel Trains can distribute that lease to somewhere else in the country. Where they're going to put the 175 if they bring them on board will probably be Somerset, Devon, and Cornwall. That's primarily where they're going to end up going. However, some of these routes will require some gauge clearance and possibly get alteration to the routes itself, just because to allow the trains to run. So you're talking about line side structures will potentially be in the way of the 175. In that case, folks, guess what you get for 2025? Another Christmas delay so they can get the 175 to run on board. Yay, how exciting. Let's look at the Intercity Express train. GWR could go with the fancy Class 800, Class 8XX, however you want to define that class there. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to stop, folks. We got to stop. Oh my god, I am not prepared for this. What's going on with my throttle? Let's go throttle idle. Braking. Now we need to brake, people. We need to brake. I see a red light up ahead. Maybe we won't get into the Intercity Express. Okay, thank god that light's moving. Okay, we're going to keep running. We're just going to coast along. There's got to be a network or turbo up there. I'm going so fast to Paddington, I'm almost going to blow through a red light. That's just dumb, man. I gotta pay more attention to this and pay less attention to exciting research that I like doing about these trains. So much fun. All right, 2.3 miles to hit that red. Folks, get off the line. I'm gonna crash my train. Okay, good. It's going yellow. We're okay, folks. We're now down to 90. We're so early. We're like 10 minutes early. This is why we're bumping up against that network or turbo. No wonder. That explains everything, folks. All right, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that light up ahead because it's about 2 miles out. I don't want to overdo my throttle. We're gonna give it a throttle 3 for the now. Let's see if we can push that light a little further along. Yeah, so the Intercity Express, with essentially what people in Great Britain want is the issue is they want trains that they know are going to one, run on time, two, aren't going to be constantly delayed after they get on board that train. So they want to be able to get to a station, get on board the train, and not have cancellation delays. Big deal, folks. Big deal. The hope originally was to bring the Intercity train and release this. However, when Intercity train originally released, when was this that was releasing? It was, gosh, like 7 years ago from the time that I'm doing this particular episode here, folks. 7 years ago, they tried to release the Intercity train, and what happened, it was a gigantic PR disaster for the Great Western Express. So this is why the Great Western Express is not just going out and buying brand new trains and putting them on the tracks and hoping for the best. This is actually why the battery train is going through a tremendous amount of testing to ensure that nothing untoward happens, I guess you could say, when they do roll out the battery train and have it as a standard running unit for probably for network or turbos. It's just to make sure, oh my god, people, get off the line, there we go. But it's just to make sure everything will run safely. So these trains were designed by Hitachi, and they're essentially Japanese-made trains, but they were not built in Japan. They were actually built somewhere else, and I will tell you where they're built. I'm a little scared about this red light coming up ahead. The original ones that left Bristol, the first one 7 years ago, left 25 minutes late. First off, Hitachi brand new Class 800 train, left 25 minutes late. The seats had to be sectioned off because there was an air conditioning combustion unit that sprang a leak, which basically ruined an overcrowded train to begin with. And the train was originally operating on electric and diesel power. It actually had to stop in Buckinghamshire because of where the electricity somehow ran out. So at the time, 7 years ago, the overhead wires for it, there was no more electricity beyond that. However, there was some issue between the transfer of electric to diesel that there's something essentially prevented the train from continuing forward. And so this created some problems where it arrived at London about 41 minutes late. That's on the first trip. The return trip thankfully did better. However, there were doors that did not open at all at Didcot in Oxfordshire. Yes, the very first trip, people laughed, don't get me wrong, but it was just a PR disaster all around, folks. A great example of this is somebody here spends about £10,000, including parking fees, rail fees, whatever else they have to do to board a train and then drive that train to London every single day. He essentially expects to have decent service. When you have this sort of disaster happen, you have this sort of disaster. And this is why I'd say, like, it's not the easiest thing for GWR to go from HST, 60 years of running HST, to go onto a brand new train and have it released good. The Hitachi also had some other problems. We'll get into that just a second. Now, the Hitachis, where were they originally built? We got to slow down anyways to 100. We're just going to drop our speed off just a touch here. The Hitachis, again, were built, they're also called the Hitachi 800. They're also called Azumas. They were assembled at the company's Newton Aycliffe plant in County Durham. So they're essentially Japanese model trains, but not built by the Japanese. Had they been built by the Japanese, they'd be hugely reliable, hugely safe, and have no problem. But because they were not built, you had so many other issues that came along with it, folks. All right, we're just dropping throttle because that 100-mile-an-hour thing over there, I just need to go initial reduction because I know I'm not going to hit the 100 miles unless this red flag changes, which I don't see this changing anytime soon. I got two double back-to-back reds there coming up. So we're going to go back down to 90 miles an hour. Maybe that will stretch out the distance a little bit. Guy over there, get off the line. Hitachi Rail Europe won a $5.7 billion contract to replace the old Intercity stock. And this is essentially why they got the advantage to build this where they built it. The plant opened in September 2015 for $82 million, or 82 million pounds, I should say. And this included GWR, Liner, Transpin, Express, ScotRail, and Hull trains. All of these were being built in that particular plant. However, the problem with it is you had these trains develop cracking issue. This is the second issue that came up with the Intercity Express train. Where were these cracks, folks? The cracks existed behind the lifting jack pocket bolster, wherever that is. Essentially, think of picking a jack, lifting your train up. That's essentially where the cracks were located. Because of those cracks, they had to essentially revoke these trains from the line. Giant PR disaster from initial release, but then also PR disaster from rollout of what was supposed to be a more reliable, more efficient train for GWR. And so it actually pays GWR to continue running HSTs for as long as feasibly possible. How long is that? I don't actually know, because GWR will eventually have failures on their HSTs if they can't constantly get new spare parts, if they can't constantly get like repairs done on a timely manner. And quite frankly, the HSTs here are like the Amtrak of the US, where they're very reliable but very old, right? Started looking into investigating the issue of where the crack came from. They started looking into what happened and how can they fix this in a way where it won't happen again. That was the idea, and the design authority in Japan responsible for the product platform gave the ORR and the train operators a better understanding of the role of the lifting pocket and the risk that may follow should one of those happen to be detached from the train itself, which is essentially what the cracks were doing. And the Japanese at least said it was completely unlikely this would happen, but somehow the UK folks managed to put this together in a way where we would way more likely that this sort of thing would happen. And whether further cracks are going to happen is a good question. I don't see that happening. I know I'm overspeeding, but this is the end of the mission. We're not too worried about it. We're past my ET score. I've got a platinum medal. I'm happy there. So let's just go ahead and coast along, try to get us down to 40 as close as we can. These cracks apparently didn't develop per se overnight. They develop over a period of time. Likely these are creep cracks, I guess you can say. What that means, in my words at least, is creep crack is a crack that starts developing as the train moves, and that the constant shaking happens. It slowly cracks the train and eventually split the area that we're talking about there. On the painted vehicle, there's no cracks because the paints were able to cover up the cracks, and so this also created a vulnerability in the context of being able to discover and manage these cracks over time. They did over time pull off all the Zumas and check them out, but you still have the issue across the board whether or not there's actually going to be cracks or not. They do have contingency plans, and they're trying to create a plan in a sense that when this kind of stuff happens, they will pull on another train. And in this case, it happened. Oh my god, that cannot stop. There we go. Thank you. I don't need to be late just yet, right? I don't need to be late. Let's go ahead and initial reduction this because we're a mile out. I think this is a good enough place to start braking for us. So they're looking at like 387 EMUs to be transferred on loan to add capacity to the Thames Valley fleet. This is essentially part of the contingency plan. So if they have to pull out the IETs, they have the way to essentially keep trains running without essentially causing a whole network shutdown because of something like a crack. However, the pantograph heads on the class 387 do have to be replaced. The software does have to be updated. There are some issues here with bringing on the 387. However, with that said, they are running through Swindon, and GWR has not officially completed the clearance to run them to places like Cardiff. This process, of course, is in process in order to make sure there's a contingency plan for the IETs. With that said, folks, we're coming into London Paddington itself. We're about 0.6 miles or 900 yards or whatever, however you want to phrase it. I can actually kind of coast along about a minute early. I don't quite understand how I went from what felt like 10 minutes early to 10 minutes barely even near my time here. Folks, as usual, if you like this, please definitely like and subscribe, leave me comments. Obviously, I'm not going to have an additional GWR route just yet, but that's not the end of GWR for me. I've got a few things in mind in my head that I want to do with GWR, and so you will see more GWR rail lines in the future. So definitely like, subscribe if you want to catch those when they pop up. I've got a couple of things that I'm going to try to work with as I go forward in the future. But with that said, up next, I want to highlight the CSX GP40. So I finally got access to the DLC. I finally got access to Train Sim World 2020. I ran it for the first time. My game crashed, of course. Yay, because why? My GPU decided to overheat with Train Sim World 2020. My thinking there is my GPU just getting old rather than the game causing the problem. So we'll see if there's a future fix for that at some point. Oh my god, I'm going to crash through the line. Okay, we got to go train break 3. Train break, come on, stop my train. I'm just realizing I'm not stopping in time. Come on, let's go. There we go. God, 10 miles an hour is way better to go instead of crashing into the, oh no, not all the way down. Keep going. I'm going, oh god, I'm going to be early and I'm going to be late. Go train, go. Folks, there's no one in the station. What in the world? Why is the last couple missions here lately been so empty in the station? I think, well, I do know why. It's 9 o'clock and everybody's just standing over there. That explains everything. Well, let's go ahead and slow this train down one more time because this train's got to come to a stop. Train Sim World's been a really fun simulator to drive. So if you haven't had that, oh no, we're not stopping here. No, I failed my mission. Whatever. It's over, folks. I failed my mission. Are you going to let me go? You're not going to let me go because my brakes are locked in. I want to go up there, but you know what? This is fine. This is okay to lock my doors here. Well, let's go and try to move up anyways because I can do it. Why is there a 40-mile-an-hour yard limit right here? That is just dumb, folks. 40-mile-an-hour speed limit at the end of the line. Well, who designed this Dovetail games? Folks, look at that. The 40-mile-an-hour limit is actually at the same limit at the red sign. This is what causes people to crash. This guy's like, my train is like 2 minutes late. Folks, I'll be there as soon as I can, and that's just how it's gonna go. We're gonna stop. He's probably my new driver anyway, so let's go ahead and unlock the right doors, let people out, put the DRA on, and I think at this point it wouldn't hurt to put full service or the brake. Is there a parking brake here? I remember there's a parking brake. There's a parking brake. Let's just go ahead and turn that on. I haven't used that in a while. And while we're waiting for passengers to load, one of the things we could do is put on tail markers where they're tail lights. We could turn off train supply brightness. We'll leave the spare on. It doesn't really do anything useful. We have this there. We turn the reverter off completely. I will have to unfortunately lock the door, so we'll have to leave that on for a second. The engine room light we can leave just for posterity's sake. Let's go ahead and open the doors here. You there. You're my new driver. Get off the phone and get in the train because you're going to be driving the... Oh, maybe you're the one. Lady, come back. Drive the train. I need a new driver. There's got to be somebody who's got to drive the next train. I'm going home. Are you going to be the one driving my train? Please drive my train. Drive my train, sir. Stop talking to someone. Your phone's not on. I could see it there clearly a day. Well, folks, let's go ahead and lock the doors and lock right, and we'll just stand up and go back outside and leave my train. That was a blurry ending. Speeding minus 97. That is okay. We are officially done with the Great Western Express. This has made my week. I literally have recorded the last few episodes across the week just because I was just like, I'm going to go through it. Let's just do it. If I don't do it, I'm going to get demotivated somehow. So as usual, like, subscribe, leave me comments, and we will catch everybody in the next episode of whatever I bring to you next. That's the idea, folks. Stay tuned. Bye, guys.